Commander Taiyang stood in the darkness of his ship's bridge, watching the stars through the viewport. Behind him, the emergency lights blinked red. Another warning. Another system failing. His ship was dying, just like everything else in this war. "Commander, we're receiving the casualty reports from the 7th Fleet," his communications officer said quietly. The young officer's hands shook as he read the data. 92 ships lost. Only 15 survived. Taiyang closed his eyes. 92 ships meant tens of thousands of lives, families, children, all gone in a single battle against the Krathis swarm. The Krathis had appeared 5 years ago from the dark spaces between galaxies. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody understood what they wanted. They just consumed everything. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. They turned living worlds into dead rocks, absorbing all the resources before moving to the next target. The Valerian Alliance had formed to fight them. 7 species united for the first time in galactic history, but unity wasn't enough. The Alliance was losing. Badly. Taiyang's ship limped toward Valerian Prime, the capital world where the Galactic Council met. He had been summoned for an emergency session. When he arrived, he saw the fear in everyone's eyes. The council chamber was filled with the leaders of 7 different species, and they all looked defeated. "We cannot win this war," the council chairman said. His voice echoed in the large hall. "Our military advisors estimate we have 3 months before the Krathis reach our core worlds. Maybe less." Silence filled the room. 3 months until extinction. "Then we surrender," someone said. "You cannot surrender to the Krathis," another voice replied. "They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They consume." The argument went on for hours. Taiyang sat and listened, feeling the weight of hopelessness pressing down on everyone. They had fought so hard, lost so much, and it was all for nothing. Then an old strange voice spoke from the corner of the chamber. "There is another option." Everyone turned. The speaker was Archivist Velkis, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy. His species lived for thousands of years, and they kept all the ancient records and histories. Most people forgot he was even there. "What option?" the chairman asked, though his tone suggested he didn't believe there was any hope left. "The myths speak of a species," Velkis said slowly, moving toward the center of the chamber. His ancient body moved with difficulty. "A species that vanished from galactic records over 10,000 years ago. They were called humans." Several council members laughed. "Myths won't save us," one said, but Velkis continued. "Before my species learned to travel the stars, humans already had a vast civilization. The records say they were unlike any other species. They fought wars among themselves that should have destroyed them, but they always survived. They adapted. They never surrendered, even when defeat was certain." "Where are they now?" Taiyang asked. He didn't believe in myths, but he was desperate enough to listen. "They disappeared," Velkis said. 10,000 years ago, they withdrew from all galactic contact. They created a quarantine zone around their home system and vanished. Most species forgot they existed. They became stories, legends. Some say they destroyed themselves. Others say they evolved beyond the need for physical form. "And you think these mythical humans will save us?" someone asked mockingly. Velkis activated a holographic display. Ancient star charts appeared, showing a section of space marked with warning symbols. The old records contain coordinates, the location of their home system, a place they called Sol. "It lies in the forbidden sectors where our ships never go." "Because that space is dangerous," a military commander said. "Strange energy readings. Ships that enter never return." "Perhaps the humans made it that way," Velkis replied. "Perhaps they wanted to be left alone." The council erupted in arguments again. Half thought it was foolish to chase myths. The other half had no better ideas. Taiyang stood up. "I'll go," he said loudly. The chamber went quiet. "I'll lead an expedition to find these humans," Taiyang continued. "If they exist and they're as powerful as the legends say, maybe they'll help us. If they don't exist, at least we tried everything before the end." The chairman looked at him with sad eyes. "It's likely a suicide mission, Commander." "Everything is a suicide mission now," Taiyang replied. "At least this one offers hope." The council voted. It was close, but they approved the mission. Taiyang was given a fast scout ship and permission to choose his crew. He picked 3 people. Captain Nari was an intelligence officer, brilliant and skeptical of everything. She would keep them thinking clearly. Pilot Hyunwoo was the best navigator in the fleet, capable of flying through dangerous space. And engineer Yuna was young but talented, able to fix anything that broke. When Taeyang told them about the mission, Nari laughed. "We're going to chase ghost stories while the galaxy burns? Do you have a better idea?" Taeyang asked. She didn't. They prepared the ship in 2 days. Velkus gave them the ancient coordinates and every piece of data about humans that still existed. Most of it was corrupted or incomplete, fragments of languages, pieces of old transmissions, images of strange bipedal creatures that looked fragile compared to most galactic species. "They don't look dangerous," Hyunwoo said, studying an image of a human. "Looks can deceive," Yuna replied. "The records say humans could survive in almost any environment. They could eat almost anything. They healed from terrible injuries, and their minds worked in strange ways, making connections other species couldn't see." "Sounds like a myth to me," Nari said. On the day of departure, news arrived that the Krethis had destroyed another Alliance world. Millions dead, the timeline was shrinking. They didn't have 3 months anymore. Maybe 6 weeks. Taeyang stood on the bridge as his ship pulled away from Valerian Prime. The planet looked so beautiful from space, blue and green and alive. He wondered if he would ever see it again. "Course set for the Forbidden Sectors," Hyunwoo announced. "Estimated travel time 7 days. 7 days to find a myth. 7 days to save the galaxy. Or 7 days to die chasing false hope." Taeyang watched the stars stretch into lines as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Alliance prepared for its final battles. Ahead of them lay mystery, danger, and perhaps humanity. If the legends were true, they would find warriors who never surrendered. If the legends were false, they would find nothing but empty space and death. Either way, Taeyang thought, at least they were doing something. At least they were still fighting. The ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, heading toward a system that hadn't been visited in 10,000 years, searching for a species that might not even exist anymore. The ship's alarm screamed as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Hyunwoo fought with the controls, trying to stabilize their position. "What's happening?" Taeyang shouted over the noise. "Something's pulling us out of FTL," Hyunwoo said, his hands moving fast across the navigation console. "There are massive energy fields all around us. I've never seen anything like this." Through the viewport, they could see the Sol system. A yellow star burned in the distance, and several planets orbited around it. But between them and the star were thousands of objects floating in precise patterns. "Those are defense platforms," Nari said, studying her sensor readings. "Automated weapons. They're old, but the technology is far more advanced than anything we have." One of the platforms activated. A beam of light shot across space and stopped just in front of their ship. Then words appeared on their main screen, written in dozens of different languages. Most were dead languages that nobody had spoken in thousands of years. Nari worked quickly to translate. "It's a warning," she said. "Turn back. This system is quarantined. Any ship that continues will be destroyed. Try sending a peaceful message," Taeyang ordered. "Tell them we need help. Tell them about the Krethis." Nari sent the message, but there was no response. The defense platforms remained active, their weapons pointed at the ship. "We should leave," Hyunwoo said nervously. "If even one of those platforms fires, we're dead." "Wait," Yuna said, leaning over Nari's shoulder. "Look at this. There's another message hidden in the warning. It's in ancient human language. I think it says humanity welcomes those who come in peace." "That was written 10,000 years ago," Nari said. "The humans who programmed these platforms are long dead." But Taeyang made a decision. "Take us forward slowly. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. Those platforms could have fired the moment we arrived." Hyunwoo piloted the ship carefully through the defense grid. Every second they expected to be destroyed. But the platforms tracked them without firing. It was like they were being watched, tested. They moved deeper into the system, passing the outer planets. Then Hyunwoo's console showed something impossible. "I'm detecting ships," he said. "Moving fast. Very fast." 3 vessels appeared on their sensors. They were sleek and strange, shaped like nothing the Alliance had ever built. They moved in ways that seemed to defy physics, making turns that should have torn apart any normal ship. "They're surrounding us," Nari reported. The 3 human ships took positions around them, one on each side and one above. Then a voice came through their communication system. It spoke in perfect Alliance standard, the common language used by all galactic species. "Unknown vessel. You have entered restricted space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Taeyang nodded to his crew. They powered down everything except life support. One of the human ships attached to theirs with a docking tube. Taeyang and his crew waited in the airlock unarmed and nervous. They heard the sounds of the human ship's airlock opening. Then they saw their first human. He was tall but not giant. His body looked fragile compared to most Alliance species. He wore a black uniform with strange symbols, and he carried a weapon that hummed with energy. His face was smooth, with two eyes that watched them carefully. "I am Lieutenant Jinwoo of the Terran Defense Fleet," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "You should not be here. How did you find this system?" Taeyang stepped forward. "My name is Commander Taeyang of the Valerian Alliance. We have old records from before your people disappeared. We came here because we're desperate. We need your help." Jinwoo's expression didn't change. "Humans do not involve themselves in galactic affairs. We left that life behind 10,000 years ago. The galaxy is dying," Taeyang said urgently. "A force called the Krethis Swarm is consuming everything. We've lost dozens of worlds. Billions of people are dead. In a few weeks, the Alliance will fall, and then the Krethis will spread to every corner of the galaxy." "Why should this concern us?" Jinwoo asked. "We are safe here." Yuna stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "Because if the Alliance falls, the Krethis won't stop. They'll keep spreading. Eventually, they'll reach this system. And even if you can defend yourselves, what about all the species that will die before then? Can you really watch the galaxy burn and do nothing?" For the first time, Jinwoo's expression showed something, a flicker of uncertainty. He tapped a device on his wrist and spoke in human language. Taeyang's translator caught some words. "Survivors, galactic conflict, council decision. I will take your request to my superiors," Jinwoo said finally. "But I make no promises. Humans learned long ago that galactic conflicts never end. Every time one threat is defeated, another rises. We chose peace over endless war." "This isn't just another war," Nari said. "The Krethis aren't like other species. They don't want territory or resources in the traditional sense. They want to consume all organic life. If they win, there won't be another war because there won't be anyone left to fight." Jinwoo studied them for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "Come with me. My ship will escort yours to Earth. The Terran Council will hear your case. But I warn you, they have refused every request for intervention for 10,000 years. Do not expect them to change now." They followed Jinwoo's ship deeper into the system. As they approached the third planet from the sun, Taeyang felt his breath catch in his throat. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. Green and brown continents held massive cities that glowed with light. Rings of orbital stations circled the planet, and thousands of ships moved in organized patterns. "There are so many," Yenwu whispered. "I'm detecting millions of humans on the planet. Billions, maybe." "They didn't die," Yuna said, amazed. "They didn't destroy themselves. They thrived." As they descended through Earth's atmosphere, they saw wonders, cities that reached into the clouds, forests and oceans that looked pristine and healthy, technology that seemed like magic. And everywhere, humans going about their lives, unaware that visitors from the stars had arrived. They landed at a military facility. Jinwoo led them through corridors filled with human soldiers who watched them with curious eyes. Finally, they entered a large chamber where 12 humans sat at a curved table. "The Terran Council," Jinwoo announced. "They will decide your fate." An older human woman at the center of the table spoke. "Commander Taeyang, we have heard your message. We have reviewed the data you brought. The Krethis Swarm is indeed a threat, but humans left the galactic community for a reason. We grew tired of endless conflicts. Why should we return now?" Taeyang took a deep breath. Everything depended on his next words. "Because you are human," he said. "The legends say humans never abandoned those in need. They say humans fought for what was right even when it was hard, even when it cost them everything. If you've truly changed that much, then perhaps you're not the humans we came to find." The council members looked at each other. The chamber fell silent. Then the woman smiled slightly. "You know how to appeal to human nature," she said. "We will deliberate on your request. You will have your answer in 3 days." 3 days. Taeyang hoped the Alliance could survive that long. As Jinwoo led them to their quarters, Taeyang looked back at the council chamber. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of a species that had become myths and legends. He just hoped the myths were true. For 3 days, Taeyang and his crew waited. Jinwoo served as their guide, showing them parts of Earth that humans allowed them to see. Each day brought new wonders and new fears. On the first day, they visited a military training facility. They watched human soldiers practice combat techniques that looked brutal and efficient. The humans moved with a grace that seemed impossible for beings without natural armor or weapons. "Your people look fragile," Nari observed, watching two humans spar. "But they fight like apex predators," Jinwoo nodded. "Humans evolved as pursuit hunters. We're not the fastest or strongest, but we never give up. Our ancestors would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That same determination exists in everything we do." That evening, Yuna asked Jinwoo about human history. He showed them records from Earth's past, wars that killed millions, weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds, conflicts that nearly ended all life on the planet. "We almost destroyed ourselves," Jinwoo admitted. "Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. Humanity stood at the edge of extinction many times, but each time we pulled back. We learned. We adapted." "Is that why you left the galaxy?" Taeyang asked. "Partly," Jinwoo said. "When humans first joined the galactic community, we were young and eager. We thought we could help end conflicts, bring peace. But we discovered that the galaxy had been fighting the same wars for millions of years. Species rose and fell. Empires appeared and vanished. The conflicts never ended, only changed forms." He pulled up images of ancient galactic wars. "We fought in 7 major conflicts. Each time we were told it would bring lasting peace. Each time, within a few years, new wars began. Humans realized we were just feeding an endless cycle, so our leaders made a difficult choice. They chose to leave," Nari said. "They chose to save humanity," Jinwoo corrected. "We built the defense grid and withdrew. For 10,000 years we've lived in peace. We've focused on science, art, philosophy, exploration of our own system. We've evolved beyond the need for constant conflict." On the second day, they visited a human city. Millions of people lived there, in harmony with nature and technology. Children played in parks. Artists created beautiful works. Scientists worked in laboratories on projects Taeyang couldn't even begin to understand. "This is what we protect," Jinwoo said. "This peace, this life. Can you understand why we're reluctant to give it up?" Taeyang could understand. But he also knew that peace could not exist in isolation forever. That afternoon, urgent news arrived from the Alliance. The Krithis had reached Valerian Prime. The defense fleet was holding them back, but barely. The planet had hours, maybe a day at most. Yuna broke down crying when she heard. "My family is there," she said. "My parents, my younger brother. They're all on Valerian Prime." Jinwoo's expression softened. He touched Yuna's shoulder gently. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. On the third day, the Terran Council gathered for their final deliberation. Taeyang and his crew were brought to the council chamber to hear the decision. The debate had been fierce. Half the council wanted to maintain isolation. They argued that humanity had no obligation to save species that couldn't save themselves. That intervention would only drag humans back into the cycle of violence they had escaped. The other half argued for intervention. They said that humanity's strength meant nothing if they used it only for themselves. That peace without compassion was not true peace. Captain Minji, commander of the First Fleet, stood before the council. She was a decorated warrior respected by all humans. Her voice carried weight. "I have studied the Krethis data," she said. "This is not like the wars of the past. The Krethis are not a species seeking resources or territory. They are a consuming force like a disease. If they destroy the Alliance, they will eventually reach other species. Then others. Eventually they will reach us. Our defenses are strong," a council member argued. "We can protect ourselves." "Perhaps," Minji agreed. "But what will we be protecting? A humanity that turns its back on genocide? That watches billions die and does nothing? Is that the peace we built?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "Our ancestors nearly destroyed Earth through greed and violence, but they also nearly destroyed it through inaction and apathy. We withdrew from the galaxy to evolve, to become better. I say we have become better. Better enough to make the hard choice to fight when fighting is necessary." The council members looked at each other. The debate continued for another hour. Then they called for a vote. It was close. Very close. But the final count came down on the side of intervention. The council chairwoman stood. "Commander Taeyang, humanity will answer your call. We will deploy our fleets to aid the Valerian Alliance." Taeyang felt relief flood through him. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking slightly. But the chairwoman wasn't finished. "However, understand this. We do not fight to restore the old galactic order. We fight to end the Creethies' threat. After that, humans will remain part of the galactic community. We will work to build something better than what existed before. The cycle of endless war must end." "Agreed," Taeyang said immediately. He would have agreed to anything at that moment. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A human officer rushed into the chamber. "Council, we're receiving a transmission from the Alliance. It's on all frequencies." They activated the view screen. The image showed Valerian Prime from space. The planet's defensive shields flickered and died. Creethi's ships swarmed around it like insects around a light. Then the transmission cut to static. The chamber went silent. Everyone understood what they had just witnessed. "Valerian Prime had fallen. How long until we can deploy?" the chairwoman asked, her voice hard as steel. Admiral Doyen, the highest-ranking military officer, stepped forward. He was an old man, but his eyes burned with purpose. "All fleets have been on standby since the debate began. We can launch within the hour." "Then give the order," the chairwoman said. "After 10,000 years of peace, humanity goes to war." Doyen touched his wrist device. Throughout Earth's orbital facilities, human soldiers received the command. 20 fleets began their final preparations. Hundreds of ships powered up their engines. Thousands of fighters launched from carriers. Taeyang and his crew were brought to Minji's flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Defiance. They watched from the observation deck as the human fleet assembled. "I've never seen anything like this," Hyunwoo whispered. The ships moved in perfect coordination, forming patterns that were both beautiful and terrifying. In the hangar bay, human soldiers prepared for battle. Some were young, going to war for the first time. Others were veterans who remembered the old conflicts. They all moved with calm efficiency, checking weapons, reviewing tactical data, performing ancient rituals that had been passed down through generations. Jinwoo found them on the observation deck. He now wore combat armor, dark and covered with equipment Taeyang didn't recognize. "You're going with them?" Taeyang asked. "All Defense Fleet personnel are deploying," Jinwoo said. "This is what we trained for, what we've been preparing for." "I thought humans had been at peace for 10,000 years, Nari said. Jinwoo smiled grimly. "We have been at peace. But humans never forget how to fight. It's part of who we are." The fleet began to move. 20 groups of ships, each containing hundreds of vessels, departed from Earth's orbit. They aligned themselves in formation and then, one by one, they disappeared into faster-than-light travel. They were heading to Valerian Prime, to the Creethies' swarm, to war. Taeyang looked out at the stars and hoped they weren't too late. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valerian system. What they saw made even the experienced human commanders pause. The space around Valerian Prime was filled with Creethies ships. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. They moved in coordinated swarms, each ship connected to the others through some kind of biological network. They looked like insects, all chitin and sharp edges, and they darkened the space around the planet like a plague of locusts. The Alliance fleet was still fighting, but barely. Only 20% of their ships remained operational. They formed a desperate defensive ring around what was left of the orbital stations. As Taeyang watched, 3 more Alliance vessels exploded, torn apart by Creethies' weapons. "All ships, Battle Formation 7, Minji commanded from the bridge of the Eternal Defiance." Her voice was calm, showing no fear. "Target clusters Alpha through Delta. Weapons free." The human fleet moved forward as one unit. Their ships accelerated to speeds that seemed impossible, arranging themselves into complex patterns. Then they opened fire. The Creethies had never encountered human weapons. The first wave hit them like a hammer. Kinetic missiles traveled at a fraction of light speed, punching through Creethies' armor like paper. Directed energy weapons sliced through entire clusters of enemy ships. Electromagnetic pulses shut down their organic computers, leaving hundreds of ships drifting helplessly. But it was more than just superior weapons. It was the way humans fought. The Creethies fought as a swarm, relying on overwhelming numbers and coordination. They expected enemies to fight the same way, to meet force with force. But humans had learned different lessons from their long history. Minji's fleet split into smaller groups that moved independently, each one acting like they were separate battles. The Creethi's coordination began to break down as they couldn't track all the human movements at once. Some human ships would charge directly at Creethi's clusters, drawing their attention, while others circled around to hit them from behind. They're using fake retreat patterns, Nari observed from her station, watching the tactical display. They make it look like they're running, and the Creethis chase them straight into ambushes. It's called guerrilla warfare, Jinwoo explained. He was preparing for a boarding mission with his squad. Humans perfected it thousands of years ago. You don't fight your enemy's battle, you make them fight yours. One human destroyer took heavy damage and appeared to be fleeing. A large Creethis cluster pursued it, leaving their formation. When they were isolated, 20 human fighters emerged from hiding behind a moon and destroyed the entire cluster in seconds. Hyunwoo watched in amazement. They're not just fighting. They're hunting. The battle raged for hours. The Creethis had numbers, but humans had experience and unpredictability. Every time the Creethis adapted to a human tactic, the humans would switch to something completely different. But the cost was high. Human ships were destroyed. Brave soldiers died. The Alliance fleet was nearly gone. And the Creethis kept coming, an endless tide of biological ships. Then Admiral Doyen, commanding from his flagship, made a bold decision. We need to find their command ship. The Creethis operate as a hive mind. Cut off the head and the body dies. Sensors scoured the battlefield. Finally, they found it. A massive Creethis vessel at the center of the swarm, 10 times larger than any other ship. It was coordinating the entire attack through biological signals. That's our target, Minji said. But it's protected by thousands of ships. We'll never get through with conventional tactics. Jinwoo stepped onto the bridge. Then we don't use conventional tactics. My team can board it. If we can get inside, we can shut it down. The shields are too strong, Minji said. We can't get you close enough. Then we punch through, Jinwoo replied. Use the Defiance as a battering ram. We can board during the confusion. Everyone on the bridge went quiet. What Jinwoo suggested was incredibly dangerous. It would require Minji to fly her flagship directly at the command ship, taking massive damage. Many would die. Minji looked at her crew. She saw their fear, but also their determination. Then she looked at Taeyang. Is this what your people need? A chance to survive? Yes, Taeyang said simply. Minji nodded. Then we give them that chance. All hands prepare for assault maneuver. We're going through the enemy line. The Eternal Defiance turned and accelerated toward the Creethis command ship. Every weapon on the flagship fired at once, clearing a path. Other human ships formed a protective wedge around them, sacrificing themselves to keep the Defiance moving forward. The Creethis realized what was happening and turned all their attention to the human flagship. Energy weapons tore into its shields. Missiles exploded against its hull. The ship shook with each impact, and alarms blared throughout. Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, someone reported. Shields at 40%, another voice called out. Keep us moving, Minji ordered. Don't slow down. Taeyang held onto his console as the ship bucked and shuddered. He saw human crew members working frantically to keep systems online. Some were injured but kept working. Nobody ran. Nobody panicked. The Defiance crashed into the command ship's shields, and both ships' energy barriers collapsed in a massive explosion. Jinwoo and his team, along with Taeyang's crew, ran to the boarding pods. Why are we going? Nari asked Jinwoo as they strapped in. Because you understand the Creethis better than we do, Jinwoo said. You've been fighting them for years. We need that knowledge. The boarding pods launched, cutting through the debris field and attaching to the Creethis command ship's hull. Plasma torches burned through the organic armor and the teams rushed inside. The interior was horrifying. Everything was organic, pulsing with life. The walls were made of something like flesh. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling, and there were Creethis warriors waiting for them. The battle inside the ship was brutal and close quarters. Human weapons fired. Creethis creatures attacked with claws and acid. Jinwoo's team moved like they had trained for this their entire lives, covering each other, taking down enemies with precise shots. They fought their way deeper into the ship, following the strongest biological signals. Finally, they reached the central chamber. It was huge, filled with what looked like a massive brain connected to thousands of nerve-like cables. That's the control center, Yuna said, scanning it with her equipment. It's sending signals to every Creethis ship in the system. Can we shut it down? Taeyang asked. Yuna worked quickly, analyzing the organic technology. Then her eyes went wide. The Creethis aren't natural. This is artificial biology. They were created as weapons by some ancient civilization. There's a shutdown code built into their genetics, but broadcasting it requires shutting down our shields. Jinwoo contacted Minji immediately. Captain, we found a way to stop them, but we need to lower our shields to send the signal. We'll be completely vulnerable. There was a pause. Outside, the battle raged. The human fleet was being worn down. Then Minji's voice came back, steady and certain. Do it. All ships, form defensive sphere around the Defiance. We're ending this. The human fleet moved into position. Every remaining ship surrounded the Eternal Defiance, pointing their weapons outward. They would protect the flagship with their own bodies if necessary. Inside the Krethes command ship, Yuna activated the shutdown signal. The massive brain-like structure began pulsing with light, broadcasting the code on all biological frequencies. The Krethes ships converged on the Defiance, sensing something was wrong. They fired everything they had. The human defensive sphere held, but ships were dying. Taeyang could hear the destruction even from inside the Krethes vessel. How long? Jinwoo asked urgently. 30 seconds, Yuna said, her hands shaking as she maintained the signal. Outside, the human fleet fought with everything they had. Ships exploded. Thousands died. But nobody broke formation. 20 seconds. More alarms. More death. The Defiance was taking heavy damage now, its outer hull cracking. 10 seconds, then the signal completed. The massive brain structure in front of them stopped pulsing and went dark. Throughout the system, every Krethes ship simultaneously shut down. Their weapons went silent. Their engines died. Millions of biological vessels became floating debris. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The silence after the battle was strange and heavy. For the first time in days, no weapons fired. No ships exploded. The space around Valerian Prime was filled with debris and dead Krethes vessels, but also with survivors. Taeyang stood in the Eternal Defiance's damaged bridge and looked out at the aftermath. The human fleet had lost 30% of its ships. Thousands of soldiers had died holding the defensive formation, but they had stopped the Krethes. They had saved the Alliance. Casualty reports are coming in, Nari said quietly, reading the data with sad eyes. She had lost friends in the battle. They all had. Minji walked through the bridge, checking on her crew. Her uniform was torn and dirty. She had a cut on her forehead, but she ignored it. All ships begin search and rescue operations. Locate every escape pod, every survivor. Nobody gets left behind. That became the priority for the next 2 days. Human and Alliance ships worked together, searching through the debris field. They found survivors in damaged vessels and escape pods floating in spacesuits. Every life saved felt like a small victory after so much death. Yuna's family was found alive in an underground shelter on Valerian Prime. When she heard the news, she collapsed in relief, crying tears of joy. Jinwoo sat with her, offering quiet comfort. "Thank you," she said to him. "You gave up your peace to save us." "That's what humans do," Jinwoo replied simply. "When we see people suffering, we can't just watch." On the third day after the battle, the surviving Alliance leaders gathered on what remained of their command station. Admiral Doyen represented humanity, arriving with an honor guard of human soldiers. The Alliance chairman looked older than before, worn down by loss and relief. "Admiral Doyen, humanity has saved us. We can never repay this debt." Doyen shook his head. "We don't want payment, but we do want change." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. "For millions of years, your species have fought the same conflicts over and over. Territory disputes, resource wars, cultural differences leading to violence. The cycle never ends. The Krethes were just the latest threat, but they won't be the last." "What are you suggesting?" another council member asked. "Humanity will not return to isolation," Doyen said firmly. "But we will not simply join your old system either. We want to build something new. A true alliance where species work together, share knowledge, solve problems before they become wars." "And if we refuse?" someone asked. Doyen smiled slightly. "Then we return home and you're on your own for the next crisis. But I don't think you'll refuse. You've seen what cooperation can achieve. You know the old way doesn't work." The Alliance leaders looked at each other. They had no choice, really. The old system had nearly led to their extinction. They needed to try something new. "We agree," the chairman said. "Help us build this better future." Over the following weeks, the work began. Human engineers helped rebuild damaged worlds. Human scientists shared technology that would improve life for billions. Human diplomats mediated disputes that might have led to conflicts, but they also shared their history. Jinwoo traveled to Alliance worlds, showing them recordings of Earth's past, the wars, the mistakes, the near-extinction events. He explained how humans had learned from their failures. "We're not perfect," he told a crowd of young aliens on one world. "We've made terrible mistakes. But we learned that survival requires more than strength. It requires compassion, cooperation, and the wisdom to change." Taeyang was promoted to admiral and became the primary liaison between humanity and the Alliance. He spent his days helping bridge the cultural gaps, teaching Alliance species about humans, and teaching humans about the galaxy they had left behind. Captain Minji returned to Earth briefly but found she couldn't stay. She requested assignment to the border regions, where her fleet would protect Alliance worlds from future threats. 10,000 years of peace was good, she told Doyun before departing. But purpose is better. Humans need something to protect. Now we have an entire galaxy. Nari joined the newly formed Human Alliance Cultural Exchange Program. She wrote extensively about First Contact, about the myths becoming reality, about what it meant when legends walked among the living. One day, several months after the battle, a memorial was unveiled on Valerian Prime. It was built on the site where the planetary shields had failed, where millions had thought they would die. The memorial was a massive wall, curved like a protective embrace with names carved into its surface. Every name, human and alien alike, everyone who had died fighting the Krethis. The list was long, covering hundreds of meters, representing thousands of lives lost. Captain Minji attended the dedication ceremony. She walked along the wall slowly, her fingers touching names of her crew members who hadn't survived. When she reached the end, she stood in silence for a long time. Taeyang found her there as the sun was setting. "They would be proud," he said quietly. "They died so billions could live." "I know," Minji replied. "But I still miss them." She placed her hand on the memorial, feeling the cool stone beneath her palm. Then she spoke not to Taeyang but to those who were gone. "We were afraid of becoming myths again, afraid that the galaxy would see us as monsters, as weapons to be feared, but we became something better. We became hope." She turned and looked at the restored city of Valerian Prime. Lights were coming on as night fell. People were going home to their families. Children played in parks that had been battlefields months ago. Life continued because humans had chosen to fight when fighting mattered. "The myths were true," Minji continued, speaking to the memorial. "Humans are terrifying in battle. We're relentless. We never surrender. We adapt to anything, but the myths missed something important." Taeyang waited, knowing she needed to say this. "We're also capable of tremendous compassion. We can sacrifice everything for people we've never met. We can build instead of destroy. We can choose peace while maintaining the strength to defend it." She smiled slightly. "That's what makes us truly human." Above them, human ships patrolled the orbital space, keeping watch. Below them, engineers from a dozen species worked together to rebuild what was lost. Around them, the galaxy was learning a new way. The age of isolation was over. The age of endless conflict was ending. A new age was beginning, one where myths walked among the stars not as monsters but as protectors, teachers, and friends. Taeyang looked up at the night sky and saw the future spreading out like stars. Human ships were traveling to distant worlds now, not as conquerors but as allies. They brought with them 10,000 years of hard-won wisdom, technology that could improve lives, and the determination that had once made them legends. "What happens now?" Yuna asked, joining them at the memorial. She had been visiting her family and looked happier than Taeyang had ever seen her. "Now we build," Taeyang said. "We learn. We grow. Together." Jinwoo arrived with a group of young humans newly assigned to diplomatic missions. They looked at the memorial with serious faces, understanding the cost of what they were undertaking. "Is it worth it?" one young human asked. "Giving up our peace for this?" Minji turned to face them. "Peace without purpose is just waiting to die. We found our purpose again. We remember what it means to be human, not just survive, but to help others survive. That's worth any cost." As the memorial dedication ceremony concluded, representatives from every Alliance species gathered. They stood together, human and alien, unified by shared loss and shared hope. The speeches talked about sacrifice, courage, and the future they would build together. But Taeyang wasn't listening to the speeches anymore. He was watching the interactions. Human children playing with alien children, Scientists from different species excitedly discussing projects. Soldiers who had fought together now becoming friends. This was the real victory, he realized. Not the battle they had won, but the peace they were building. Not the Crethis they had defeated, but the unity they had forged. The sun set on Valerian Prime and the stars came out. Among those stars, human ships continued their journey, spreading across the galaxy that had once feared them, then forgotten them, then desperately needed them. The myths had returned. But they had returned as something greater than legends. They had returned as hope, and the galaxy would never be the same.